Hello everybody. Okay, yeah, I'm at the new campsite. I'll throw a little bit of footage at the end just so you can see, but one campsite looks just like another. I've got trees behind me this time. At some point I'll go down to some of the other areas and film, but my tent is right there. So take a look for that at the end. Okay, we're continuing on our Christmas story. There is absolutely no reason outside of wandering so far away from God that they didn't recognize Jesus. He's talked about multiple times in the Old Testament. I'm not going to cover them all because it would take too long. But I'm going to pick out some key ones because these are ones that you should be familiar with, or at least have maybe heard part of it, remember part of it. These are kind of Christmas story type things. So the first thing I'm going to do is read from Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. He doesn't give us signs very often now, but he has plenty of signs in the past. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us. Now we know that's not his Jesus' name, but I'm sure that the implication of that is accurate. Mary knew who he was because the angels told her. Joseph knew because, again, the angels told him. So if it's important, God will make sure we have a sign. So where's our rapture sign? God's got it in control, and our faith is sufficient, apparently. All of our predictors have basically come up short. Don't blame them. They're trying. It's important that we realize God's always here. It doesn't matter whether he tells us what he's doing. Most of us are not anywhere near his pay grade. Certainly I'm not. All right, so that's coming from Isaiah. He's used a lot. God, or Jesus, when he was here, quoted Isaiah a lot. Most of the time when he was in the temple on the Sabbath, he would read from Isaiah. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's back up a little bit and let's go to Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall or will be upon his shoulder. I'm having problems with SHs this morning. It is still a little bit nippy, not quite. It was down to, I think, to 35. Somebody was just down here. I didn't see him. I didn't hear they have these little carts to get around in. They've got their own vehicles, but these seem to do better for the gas, I guess. I don't know. I've got shadows on my face. I didn't think to bring my light. Maybe I will next time. And the sun is moving a little bit because I was fully in the sun, and now it's mixed. All right. And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Here comes someone driving down the road. Southern Cafe, I should go stand in the middle of the road and block them. Get some free food. So, I'm sure you've heard those names in reference to Jesus before. So, it's in Isaiah. And if we read the next, Isaiah 9:7, of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. How many people that know Jesus today on earth? Upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment, justice, and from that time forward, even forever. We have eternal life. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So we know about Jesus from Isaiah. Let's take a look at, we got more traffic coming? There's somebody driving around up there. Now, of course, this goes all the way back to Genesis, so there's no excuse. And this is their Old Testament. You know, if they didn't have the New Testament at all, they still had enough in the Old Testament to know to expect, greet, and accept Jesus. But they didn't, because they turned their eyes off of the Word onto their commentaries. The Talmud and the Mishnah were commentaries written by the priests throughout the ages with their explanation of what these things meant. And if they were wrong forever, because nobody knew to correct them and nobody wanted to correct them. Here comes that vehicle back out. They're just here looking. I need to go run and jump in front of their truck. Can't pass without food. Okay. Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. An early reference to the battle that's been going on for years. Another reference here we're going to read, Deuteronomy 8:15. A new prophet, like Moses, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me, Moses writing, from your midst, from your brethren. Him you shall hear. So Jesus, besides being God, is a prophet. For those like the Muslims who just think he was a nice man, he's all kinds of things. He's everything. Okay, here comes our people, and they're driving way too fast. It's 20 miles an hour in here. And they're going 35, 40. They don't patrol this enough at this time of year. Every once in a while I'll see a black truck up there, and it's got the local sheriff sitting in it. Okay, getting back to our stories. 2 Samuel 7:12. When your days are fulfilled and you rest with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you, and you will come from your body, and I will establish, and it will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. Jesus is a king too. We've got all kinds of names referencing what he is. Okay, our last real verse from the Old Testament. We're going to still have a couple more, but they're New Testament referenced. Micah 5:2, the coming Messiah. Okay, but you brethren, or you Bethlehem, through you are though you are little. Okay, I get this right. Though you are little among the thousands in Judah, the sun's in my eyes, and I'm having excuses for not being able to read. Though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler of Israel, whose goings forth are from old, from everlasting. Jesus has been around for a long time. We're told that. He is the Word, and the Word created everything. And that coming from Bethlehem, because that is in the Bible, when the wise guys showed up, and I like calling them wise guys, when they showed up to Herod to find out where there would be a birth of a king, he had to go get the religious leaders, because even though he was their religious representative, he didn't know. And they told him Bethlehem. So they sent him over there to Bethlehem to see the child, to view the child, because they were following a star. And how did they know about a king? Because there was a star following through the king's constellation. And these were astronomers, not astrologers. And they were from the east. Well, a lot of Israelites ended up in the East when they were captured. When they had their 70 years done and came back to Jerusalem, or to Israel, not all of them returned. A lot of them stayed later to become wise guys, bringing gifts. Okay, we're going to reference now back to Isaiah again. This one is controversial because we're not sure. Matthew 22:23. It referenced the fact that he would be called a Nazarene. Okay? And it says that, well, I decided I wasn't going to read the verse because it's confusing, but it does reference him as a Nazarene in the Old Testament. But it doesn't ever say the word Nazarene in the Old Testament. So that's the problem. Now, unless there's some other documentation that got lost, maybe the translation of Nazarene isn't the full proper word. A variation of it can be interpreted as a shoot or a branch off of the main tree. And he's often referred to that. In fact, if we go to Isaiah 11:1, "Thou shalt come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." The Hebrew idiom would be written like, "There shall come forth a rod out of the root of Jesse, and a Nazarene shall grow from its roots." So if you can translate it as a branch, then we can find it in the Old Testament. And that's the only reference that we can use for that. Otherwise, we don't know. It's not in some of the other books that we sometimes get addressed in the canon. We don't know. So we're not sure. Coming from Matthew, it's supposed to be pretty good and reliable. We just probably don't understand it right. Okay. And when Jesus, in one accounting that we have in the New Testament, when Jesus went into the synagogue in Nazareth, Isaiah 61:1, "The good news of salvation, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound." That's a pretty big set of accomplishments. Jesus read that and then said, "Today you see this fulfilled in your presence." And they're rolling on the floor, pulling out their hair, ripping their clothes. They're just such blasphemy coming from this man. Yeah. They didn't know their own Bible because they forgot their roots. So Christmas is celebrated by Christians, not Jews, because they still believe that he wasn't the Messiah. Now, when they destroyed the temple in 70 AD, they had no place to worship, so they come up with some new rules. These same people that were around when Jesus was there came up with some new rules. Instead of traveling to a single point temple, which we don't have anymore, and they were scattered on top of that, so they had no place to even try to rebuild one or put up a tabernacle, a tent. They couldn't do it because they were scattered. And the Romans, to get them from ever coming back, renamed Israel Palestine. There's where we get the name from and why they think that they own the land outright, because the Romans named it that. But the Jews had already been there for a long time. In any case, he renamed it. They had no place to come back to, so they said, from now on, you will just simply go to your synagogue, to your temple, and you will carry out the same rituals that you would have done if we had our original temple. And these new laws also had an inclusion or an exclusion, have nothing to do with Jesus. Have absolutely nothing to do with him. Anybody you know who's into him, you ignore them. They're basically to be hated forever in our history. Not only did they mess up, but they also passed that on to generations. Proud people, arrogant people. But they're not to be excluded. That's their walk. God's going to show them they're on the wrong trail, because they're still chosen, and we're adopted into that chosen branch. This guy's going 50 in a 20. They're going to the public area, so they don't know any better. So there was no excuse to kill him, because it was all covered in the Old Testament. The problem is they had promoted themselves into these positions of power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've known this type of stuff forever, and we see it performed forever. We've got a complete history in the Old Testament of every time they prospered, it went to their head. They forgot God who helped them to prosper, and then they lost everything. And then they'd come back, organize, and get back together with God, and they'd prosper. It'd go to their head. It wouldn't, it might take a generation or two, but it didn't take long. We're going to see in the millennium, when we get there, they're going to start off with believers. They're going to end with the world against God in Armageddon. And they're going to get this path without Satan being around. So we don't need, you might blame Satan for where you're at today. He just helps to expedite things. But you could resist him and be on a good path your entire life. But we're sinners, and it's hard to do. When Jesus finally gives us our new body and gets rid of the old one, we get rid of the sin nature too. In the meantime, he's still doing what he's done forever, covering it up. Okay, here comes somebody over here. I'm gonna stop here. How are we doing on time? Yeah, I've got enough for this video. We're going to see how this takes over in the New Testament. And again, the references that go back to the Old Testament. So have a great day, everyone. Talk to you later. My new campsite. Same tent. This is a cleaner site than the last one. I have to, of course, pay a little bit more. It's like $6 a night more. But it's a state park. It's well maintained. You can see through the trees. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a building there. There's a restroom there. And if we turn around, see, not to get the sun, there's a building through there. You can see my car, and there's a building up there. Again, that's another restroom. The road alongside is right there. I don't get that much traffic to worry about it. Sites are numbered. Nice big power cable. I probably will move the table a little bit further away, but it's okay there now. Got a fire pit. I don't have one of those barbecues that are up off the ground, so that'll work. Got a little mat so I can wipe my feet a little bit. And if you see through the trees there is my satellite antenna. That's why I like this site. I can get it out there and get enough signal. And I got about an 80% sky view. It helps to have 100%. And that's the gate there that they close at night to keep people out of the public area. Because that's what this area to the right is. There's a boat ramp, although I very seldom see anybody use it because the river is too fast most of the time. But they close this at about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And there's that restroom I mentioned. Across the way, there's another campsite up in there. Those are platform sites. They're wood base. They have a big square wooden base, about 14 feet square. You can put your tent up on it. You can't use stakes in the wood, but there's loops on the side you can tie your lines to. And again, that goes all the way down. There's a big parking lot, 2 pavilions, a play area for the kids. And the main trail launches down there on the right. Nice clear blue sky. We do have a moon up there, not very big in this picture, but it's there. Half a moon it looks like. Most of the trees are barren if they're non-pine trees. Blessings, everyone.